In this post, we see user John Samuelson asking me about Goethe and how I can present Goethe as a full-on physical-chemical reductionist, when we see in his conversations with Eckermann, he talks about how he believes in God and in nature, the triumph of good over evil, speaks about the four Gospels, Jesus, and also in his college days talks about how he read the prohibited book that was tossed into the flames, System of Nature by Holbach. So to answer this question, I made the following diagram. The bottom portion shows the last 6,000 years of human history from the year 0A, or 1955, when atoms were first seen, counting backwards from the year atoms were seen. And the top portion shows this range of years from 0A to 2500A zoomed out. And the point of this, or rather concluding point of this video, will be to touch on why letter M, which is the sickle here, tool used for cutting crops, has the value of 400 from 6000A, or about 6,100 years ago, and why Khufu pyramid was built 440 cubits in base length, and why the Greek alphabet, 28 letters in total, which matches the 28 days of the moon cycle and the 28 days when, or 20 years when Osiris, the crop god, was said to have died, and that the value of mu plus upsilon equals 440, which matches the base length of Khufu pyramid. So over here we have Lucretius on the nature of things, wherein all of the four original fathers of atomic theory, Lucretius, Epicurus, Leucippus, and Democritus, all presented their atomic theory views right here. The last being published in the System of Nature, or On the Nature of Things by Lucretius. But then we went into a 1500-year dark age until Poggio Broccolini found a German copy of Lucretius's On the Nature of Things in a German monastery in the year 1417, or 538A. And this launched the revival of the human brain, or rather the semi-start of enlightenment here, and the full-on start of enlightenment here, shown in purple, with Holbach's System of Nature, shown here, the laws of the moral and physical world defined without recourse to hundreds of Egyptian gods, or one Christian god here, which is a rescript of all these Egyptian gods, or say the god of the Muslims, shown here by the 21-letter Arabic alphabet. So Goethe, in spite of all of his later talk about gods, when he was age 59, published his Elective Affinities, wherein he reduced all of human action into people defined as chemicals, A, B, C, and D, modeled as hydrochloric acid and calcium carbonate, and that humans and plants evolved over time from atoms. So in all of this, Goethe is trying to do everything, and at the same time ask, how does this reconcile with talk about Jesus, the four Gospels, souls, God, nature, good and evil? And his concluding point, as he told Eckermann, is that in the future we would be able to find morality according to what he called the moral symbols of affinity chemistry, better known as physical chemistry now. And this is all based on Newton's Query 31, which launched affinity chemistry. And Nietzsche tried to tackle this in his last about 1,000 fragmentary notes called Will to Power before he cracked his mind in 67 years before atoms were seen. And here's My Human Chemistry, published 52 years after atoms were seen, which is sort of the base foundation of the future. And then we also have Mirza Bigg's New Dimensions in Sociology, where he defines everything in terms of societies reacting in a test tube according to chemical thermodynamics defined by Gilbert Lewis. So here we have modern enlightenment. And then Holbach defines everything without God, morals and everything according to physics and chemistry, as he then knew things. So the point of all of this is that the letter M here, moral, and Goethe's so-called moral symbols, as he told Eckermann, come from the letter M. And that was only recently decoded by myself in the last few months here by way of Egypto-alphanumerics. So the long and short of this visual here is that the totality of the Egyptian civilization before we went into the Dark Ages, and partially in the Greek civilization, was that the flood would come, we would hoe and sow crops, letter A being the hoe, and the sun would come up, which is letter R, is the 100 value sun in the dog days of summer. This would heat the seeds planted after the crops were hoed, and then crops would grow, and we'd reap them with using our letter M sickle. So food would be on the table the next year. So all of the laws, 42 of them in total, which comes from column 4, this is the moral symbols of the alphabet. Delta is where the crops grow. M is the sickle, that's value 40, that's value 4. Upsilon is value 400. And M is equal to 40. And there are 42 laws of Mat. And each law was picked by one of the 42 gods of the states of ancient Egypt, 42 gnome gods, or gnome states in total. So the Khufu pyramid in 4500A was built with a base length of 440 cubits to match the fact that what letter Y you do as a person in society defines the morality of the social system, which determines whether or not crops in the Nile Delta will grow for this society in total. That's why the green part here is the so-called alphabet enlightenment period, going from about 3300A to 2700A. So letter M that Goethe speaks of is right here, is the root of the word moral and how you define morality in terms of modern physical chemistry.